the systems we all have to navigate, at work, in healthcare, at school, they often don't see the whole us. They tend to see a single label, not the complete person. So today we're going to break down a really powerful tool that can change that. It's called intersection mapping. We're going to see exactly how it works through the story of one person, Thomas, and find out how to build a stronger foundation for advocating for ourselves.
So here's the fundamental problem, right? Institutions, by their very nature, often want to put us in a single box. A doctor might just see a diagnosis. An employer might just see a job title. They grab onto one label, one piece of who we are, and they completely miss the rest of the picture.
But of course, in reality, your life is never just one checkbox, is it? It's this rich, complex, sometimes messy combination of all your experiences, your roles, and your identities, and they're all overlapping and interacting in ways that are totally unique to you. And that's exactly where this tool, intersection mapping, comes in. It's designed to help you chart all of that complexity. And this isn't just for, journaling or self-reflection. It's about getting a clearer, more strategic view of your own reality so you can navigate it way more effectively.
Now, this tool is built on a concept you've probably heard of, intersectionality. It's a term that was coined by the legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw. And at its heart, it's this really powerful idea that our overlapping identities, things like our race, our gender, our disability status, they create experiences both good and bad that are completely unique to that specific combination.
So to see how this all works in the real world, let's meet Thomas. He's a 52-year-old special education teacher, and his journey through this exact mapping process is going to be our guide for this whole explainer. Okay, so where do you even start? Well, the very first step is all about charting the landscape. Before you can see how all your identities intersect and how that actually impacts you, you've got to name all the pieces of your own personal puzzle. And right off the bat, Thomas shows us the limits of those standard categories. Just look at his answer for gender. He identifies as two-spirit, and he makes it so clear that this isn't just some other label on a list. It's a culturally specific role that has this deep meaning within his nation that Western checkboxes just can't capture.
He also talks about his experience with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, or FASD, which he wasn't diagnosed with until he was 46. And notice this incredible shift in perspective. He reframes what people had told him were character flaws his whole life. Those skills he had to develop just to get by, like reading a room, he now recognizes them as hard-won strengths.
Wow, this quote really gets to the core of the challenge for so many people. Thomas is basically living with two different frameworks to understand himself, one that comes from his community and another that he has to use to navigate Western systems. And neither one by itself tells the whole story. Okay, so once all those individual identities are mapped out, this is where the real work starts. The next step is to find what the tool calls hotspots. And these aren't just separate pieces anymore. These are the specific points where two or more of your identities combined to create an entirely new situation.
So a hotspot isn't just, adding two things together. It's about what happens at the intersection. For Thomas, it's not just about being Indigenous in a school district or having FASD in a school district. It's about how those two realities collide and create a completely unique set of challenges and experiences.
In his first hotspot, Thomas connects his FASD to the much larger historical context of his community. But the school district he works for, they just see it as a simple, individual medical fact on a file. That whole history gets stripped away, which creates this huge barrier to him being fully understood. And this is such a critical point. Thomas is constantly facing this choice. Does he offer the full, complex picture and risk nobody understanding him at all? Or does he offer a simpler version and lose something really true about himself? That isn't a personal failure. It's a structural problem that a lot of people face every day. His second hotspot brings up what is really a classic advocate's dilemma. When he's advocating for students who share his identities, how much of himself does he reveal? I mean, if he makes his own stake in this too visible, he could become a target. But if he stays invisible, he disappears from a conversation that is, fundamentally, about him. So this brings us to a really crucial point. This whole process isn't just an exercise in self-reflection. The goal is to turn all this newfound clarity into a concrete strategy for advocacy. So how do we actually get there? Well, a key part of building that strategy is something called the both-and check. It's all about acknowledging that you can have advantages and face barriers at the very same time, and neither one cancels the other out. So for Thomas, he has deep community trust and tons of institutional knowledge,
And he faces very real risks and limitations. Both things are true.
And I love this. Thomas makes this really powerful connection here. He points out that for him, this both-and way of thinking isn't some newfangled idea. It's actually deeply rooted in his own cultural traditions. The tool is just offering a new framework to apply that wisdom in a Western institutional setting.
All right, next, the tool helps you turn these insights into clear, actionable language. And the idea here is to prepare some key phrases in advance, so you have the right words ready to go when you need them the most, especially in those high-stress situations.
And here's where we see the payoff. This is fantastic. Thomas now has a clear, confident, and actionable way to ask for exactly what he needs. He describes the challenge, and he states precisely what helps, and he does it all without having to disclose his diagnosis unless he chooses to. This puts him back in control of the conversation.
So after doing all this work, charting the landscape, identifying the hotspots, building the phrases, what's the ultimate takeaway? What does having this map actually give you? Well, it all comes down to one thing really, clarity. This process doesn't magically fix big systemic problems, but what it does do is give you a much clearer picture of your own reality, the barriers you're up against, the unique strengths you bring to the table, and the community that has your back. And with that clarity, you can show up differently, more prepared, more strategic, and more grounded in who you are.
But it is absolutely essential to remember this final point. Mapping your intersections, gaining all that clarity, it isn't the solution to the problems you uncover.
It's the foundation. It gives you solid ground to stand on. So the real question this tool leaves us all with is a pretty powerful one. Now that you have that foundation, what are you going to build on it?